Hello and welcome to my Saturday vlog. Today we're gonna talk about creatures for the Commodore 64 and Gore movies. And you're thinking, what's the connection? And we'll get back to that. First, let's get into first person view. Now, creatures for the Commodore 64. I actually played on this channel, and that was the second time I actually completed the game. The first time Holy motherfucker. Sorry, that was a creeper. Um, I'm gonna go into the water. The first time I completed the game, as far as I remember, I actually used invincibility. I was a kid back then. I just wanted to be entertained. Well, I do as well now, but I accept a challenge more often now than just completing the game. Where did that creeper go? I want him to die. I don't want him to blow up anything, although I am actually creating a new world, but when 1.7 comes out. But I am still also keeping this world, so let's get this creeper all over with. But yeah, this time around when I completed creatures, I actually had unlimited lives, but I don't consider that cheating. The challenge is still the same. I just don't have to start over again and again. Thank you, Creeper, for dying. But yeah, Creatures is an old Commodore 64 game, a platformer, a very cute platformer about a furry guy called, not a furry guy, but a furry as a guy with fur called Clyde. It stands for something like an abbreviation. Is that the right word? I don't even know. But yeah, I can't remember what it means, Clyde. But yeah, Clyde is like it's a cute little guy, and all his friends or family, or maybe both, has been kidnapped by these evil creatures, and now Clyde has to rescue them. And it's pretty much a standard platform game where you with some have different shots you can choose between. That was actually pretty interesting. I don't think I've seen that in that many of the older platform games. You could actually choose different shots and buy different shots at the store. I know some different things that like made the game a little variated. Variated? Hey, horse. That made the game not the same all this time. Like for instance, you could surf on a a leaf down waterfalls or some diving areas. I think you could get a broom to fly on at certain stages. And then at every third level, and that's where the gore comes in. In every third level, you had to rescue one of your buddies from the evildoers, and if you didn't, they would get killed in the most brutal way. And the first one was a chainsaw. The guy just came and used a chainsaw on the guy, like a sword, basically, hitting him over the head over and over again with this chainsaw, and blood would spray everywhere. And that's the kind of weird thing about the game. Everything seemed very, very cute, except for that bit. But that was sort of the coolest part. They made a sequel, which I have not completed. I played a bit of the sequel, where the sequel was basically just the torture levels. I think it was called Torture Trouble, actually. But yeah, it's an amazing platformer. But I remember when I played it recently here on my channel. It, w- it wasn't as good as I remember it. But I mean, it was like I think 20 years maybe since I played it last. So of course it's going to change, but the game will still be one of the greatest games in my opinion, because of this. The nostalgia value is always a factor, especially from the age of when you're a kid. So it's a game I would highly recommend people playing. It's like I said, super cute and super gory at the same time. Oh, I can't. Why can't I make that? I want to jump over. Ugh, yeah. Um, it's a really fun game, and there are some points where some creatures. I mean, I couldn't have completed it out without unlimited lives because some creatures were invincible, but these creatures looked exactly the same as creatures that weren't invincible. So that was kind of an annoying factor in my opinion. And some creatures which you got used to taking 3 shots suddenly took more, and that was quite annoying. But I guess it was the challenge, except for the invincible creatures, not creatures, the invincible enemies thing. That was became quite annoying because you never knew who were invincible. You knew when you shot them the first time, but so it really wasn't that annoying when I think about it. But I would recommend it, and that's actually Creatures would be a game that I would very much like to see like a reboot and modern version of. They don't really make modern versions of the Commodore 64. I think it's because that people, especially in the US, didn't really play that much on the Commodore. They were more to the consoles like the NES and the Atari and stuff like that, and the Commodore might have been a more a European thing. And the market, and maybe the market of games is basically the US and Japan. I don't think Japan had it that much either. They had the NES of course too. So you don't see reboots of Commodore games that often, although Wolfenstein is actually based on a old Commodore 64 game. Little known fact. But yeah, so that brings me to Gore movies. See, that's the connection between the Gore movies. The super cute game that became ultra gory. And there's so many different kinds of gore movies. This is basically the ones that you would refer to as gore movies as a genre, which is basically mostly made in the 70s and early 80s. I think I would call them, and the Italians made a lot of those. The Italians kind of took all genres, especially in the 70s and the 80s, and just made them worse. And by worse, I don't mean they made them bad. They made the gory things more gory, for instance. That kind of worse. But I'm not gonna talk about those. Then we have the slasher movies, I guess that kind of gory, and we have the kind of like Saw and Hostel and stuff like that, the more modern gore movies. But I'm not gonna talk about those either. I might talk about all the things I'm not gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about that in a later video. But for now, I'm gonna stick to 2 things, and that is early Peter Jackson and Japan. That's right. So let's start off by talking about the early Peter Jackson before he went all Lord of the Rings shit. I really don't like the Lord of the Rings movie. I've only seen the first two of the movies. So maybe that's why I don't really. I think, but I'm not gonna talk about that. The early Peter Jackson, such as Bad Taste, Brain Dead for you, also known as the as Dead Alive for the U.S. people, and Meet the Feebles. 3 very gory movies with a comedic twist. Like basically, you have this. It's in Bad Taste. It's aliens that invade the Earth, and people. So a few people have to fight them, and it's ultra gory. You see a guy eating another guy's brain. I actually think that's Peter Jackson, as far as I remember, that is eating another person's brain, and really like hammers smashed in faces. Ooh, that's actually a song, Hammer Smashed Face. But yeah, it's really super gory and extremely funny. You have the extremely funny line where this guy called Derek, and people are saying to him, "Derek, run, Derek," because there's some people, and his answer, "I'm a Derek, and Dereks don't run." It's one of the best lines in the movie. I'm a Derek, and Dereks don't run. Let's go inside because it's getting nighttime soon. And then, of course, Brain Dead about zombie flick, really ultra gory. I think actually that it. I don't know if it still holds the record, but held the record for using most fake blood in a movie. With I can't remember the amount, but it was ridiculous. Especially there's a scene where the main character is pretty much killing everybody and everything with a chainsaw, not chainsaw, a lawnmower. And once again, an extremely hilarious movie with, again, incredible one-liners, like for instance, a priest who fighting zombies and his one-liner is, "I kick ass for the Lord." Amazing stuff. Both of those movies are incredibly fun, and extremely gory, but I don't think that's the kind of movies that you'll vomit over. None of the movies under my that I'm gonna talk about today is that kind of movie. The Meet the Feebles. Well, go back to my previous video, the one with Crash Bandicoot and stop motion and stuff like that. I talked about it there, so I'm not gonna review that again. Let's move on to Japan. Japan has, in the recent years, well, recent actually, is I think most of the 2000s made a lot of gore movies. Some of them you probably know things like Tokyo Gore Police, Machine Girl, um, Frankenstein Girl versus Vampire Girl. I was about to say Machine Girl again, but I already said that. Sugarban Boy, Rika Zombie Hunter, Big Tits Zombie. Yeah, that's actually a movie. Um, what else? Hard Revenge, Millie, stuff like that. And those movies are ultra gory and ultra hyper exaggerated violence with the weirdest movies as well. Did I say Robo Geisha? I can't remember if I do. Did. But yeah, Tokyo Gore Police is probably the only one that of those movies that really had a high budget. I think, well, it's probably the one with the highest budget. It's one of the best special effects, like for instance, a person who has an organic chainsaw. That's right, an organic chainsaw. And these movies are so over the top that it's incredibly fun to watch. The Machine Girl, where the woman gets one of her arms replaced by a machine gun, and she just goes around killing bad guys. And of course, Rika Zombie Hunter and Big Tit Zombies, like Zombie Infestation, and also really over the top. I think my favorite of those is probably Tokyo Gore Police and Frankenstein Girl versus Vampire Girl, and probably Robo Geisha. Robo Geisha is probably, I think, the least gory of the movies, but I think it's the one that's the most silly of the movies and most over the top. Although the others really come close. One movie that is not actually a gore movie that most people just think is a gore movie because they only saw the intro. That is Suicide Club. The intro to Suicide Club is basically 50, I think it's 52 school girls and boys standing on a subway platform holding hands and counting down. And when the train comes, they all jump in front of it, and there's so much blood spraying everywhere. But that's basically the only gore. There is other gore scenes in the movie, but the movie is, I would say, it's a bit a kind of gory movie based mixed in with some weird ass David Lynch and David Cronenberg kind of type of shit. Maybe some Takashi Miike. It's a really weird movie, but it's not really a gore movie. But I'd still recommend it. But Takashi Miike, as I mentioned, also made a kind of gory movie, which is of course Itchy the Killer. So go watch that as well. I don't know if I really have that much else to talk about. But yeah, the Japanese gore movies are definitely worth watching, and they're kind of hard to come by. There's a lot of them that I haven't been able to watch because, like I said, they're hard to come by. Um, but if you happen to Tokyo Gore Police and Frankenstein Girl versus Vampire Girl are probably some of the easiest ones, and they are also some of the best ones. Really nice stories. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Not really stories at all. It's basically ultra violence mixed in with a lot of gore, some silliness, some really over the top action, and really just amazingness. Amazingness? I don't know if that's a real word actually. So, but yeah, watch them. And Peter Jackson's old is gore, splatter, whatever you want to call them. Watch them too. Creatures, amazing game. Really, really, really fun platformer. One of the, I think actually it's a platform that should have been mentioned when you talk about games like Mario Brothers and and Sonic and stuff like that as the classic platformers. I think that it's a really underrated game, but I guess people just didn't have a Commodore 64, and that actually I saw a video recently. I think it was on Smosh Games, where they played what's it called? The new Genesis, this Twisted Dreams, and they actually said it was an old that Genesis was originally an old Atari game, which is this proves to know that this proves the fact that they don't really know that much about the Commodore 64 because Genesis was never on the Atari. The Atari couldn't handle the graphics of that game. And the Commodore was basically the same graphics as the NES, and basically it was a much better computer than the PC when it was at its highest. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. So yeah, Japanese gore movies, Peter Jackson gore movies. Watch them, love them. Well, that's I can't force you to love them. I can't force you to watch them either. But you are gonna love them if you watch them, unless you don't like blood and stuff. Then you'll probably hate them. And Creatures, super fun game, but don't be fooled by the cuteness. Every third level has gore and blood and chainsaws and other stuff. So yeah, I'll see you Monday. That's right, we have another video already out Monday. See you then. Bye.